Who here has family that served in the military?
My dad was in the Navy.
And you know, you probably have brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, somebody, right, that you can relate to that served in the United States Armed Forces. When you join the military, you are promised some things when you get out. And one of those things is healthcare. The Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and it may not relate to all of you, but my goal and my mission today is to touch at least one of you with my story, to add some sort of life value that you can take with you on this walk that we call life. You will face adversity in your life. Life will put you on your knees and beat you down. Believe me, it will happen. It will happen. You may have seen somebody experience that you love that has been put in bad situations in life. Could be a mom and dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, colleague, neighbor. Adversity will hit you in ways that sometimes you will not imagine. It will hit you in ways sometimes that may keep you down forever. But it's how you respond to that adversity in life that will define who you are and who you will become. It could happen on the football field. It could happen on the baseball field. It could happen in the classroom. It could be an accident. It could be a wreck. It could be a health issue. It could be cancer. It could be anything. You will face it. And to be prepared for something like that is something that you really can't do, because nobody prepares for bad things that happen. You learn from it as you go. So I was living the American dream. Everything was great. I served my country. That was me in December of 2015. That's my Christmas picture. I'm from Southern California in San Diego. As you can see, pretty fit guy. And within 30 days, I look like that. Adversity hit me in ways that I could have never seen coming or ever imagined. My wife took me to the VA emergency room in Loma Linda, California. And they said I was fine. Go home and stretch. They gave me injections of Dilaudid and Kenalog and methocarbamol and bags of pills. I was up to 40 pills a day at times. That's what I needed to get through the day. I laid in a chair dying. My wife would feed me handfuls of pills every 4 to 6 hours. Why? I don't know. They never told me why. They said I was fine. No blood tests, no MRI, no diagnostic testing, because they said I didn't need it. They denied it. For that next month, it was delayed and denied treatment. When I was needing emergency medical care, they said I didn't need it. And instead, they masked my pain with high-end opioids, with drugs, to make me a zombie, and essentially put me into a state of incapacitation as I lay dying in a chair. Finally, my wife advocated for me because I couldn't do it for myself. Couldn't make any decisions, couldn't speak, couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't do much. I was in so much pain. So we got an MRI. And the MRI stated that I needed to have surgery. My back was in bad shape. There were some parts of my back that had been destroyed. And we didn't know why, because I didn't have any trauma. I didn't fall down, I didn't get hurt. There was none of that. Just couldn't get out of bed one day. So we took that information to the VA and said, we told you there's a problem here. Let's fix it. And they said, okay, we'll give you surgery in December. As a matter of fact, we have an opening December 12th. This was now March. This story is going fairly quickly. We started in December, you saw I was fine. January of 2016, it hit me, and now we're in March. Finally, on April 30th, a private doctor opened me up in San Diego Scripps Hospital and found a surprise on the operating table. And if I would have waited to December, I would have died. I shouldn't have even made it this long, because what the doctor found as I lay open on the operating table is spine that, and I quote from the doctor, that had been moth-eaten and oozing with inflammation. Why? Well, I had tested positive for a bone-eating staph infection that was aggressively eating me alive for 4 months. That delayed and denied care that I got at the VA nearly cost me my life. The doctor says you should have died within 10 to 14 days. Sepsis should have set in. But your body staved off death. It fought. And right when you thought that the story is going to get better, oh, you didn't die. Yeah, I'm a man of gratitude. I survived, but I was left with permanent injuries in my spine. From my C-spine all the way down to my L-spine, bladder, kidney. I live in pain. I live in physical pain. I've got some emotional pain, some mental pain. This process took a very long time. They found the infection. They fought it with a PICC line. 4 months of aggressive IV antibiotics. It's like going through chemo, if you will. Destroys your gut flora. It makes you sick because you got this infection that's all through your body. You're trying to kill it. It took 4 months to get rid of the infection. About 1.5 years after everything, they said, look, you're going to be fine. You're going to recover. But it never happened. I still lived in a lot of pain. My bladder still didn't work. Bladder paralysis. And very close to being paralyzed in my spine because they had to cut so much bone out and tissue. So this test right here was a myelogram. It's pretty much they inject a bunch of dye in your spine. And they find out where all the permanent injuries are at. Well, the medical malpractice and the negligence for the treatment or the care, lack thereof, that I received at the VA caused all this. So we filed a tort claim, a federal tort claim, which is basically suing the U.S. government, suing the VA for a wrongdoing that caused permanent injury and nearly resulting in my death. At the 6-month mark, the VA Office of General Counsel called me and stated that they concluded that the VA failed to meet the standard of care and there was a breach in liability and they are settling my claim. This is several years down the road now. I hadn't worked. I lived a life of depression and an anxiety-riddled body in my room where I laid in a chair because life had put me on my knees and nearly took everything that I've ever worked so hard for away from me. My business, my truck, my equipment, my family vehicle. I got 4 kids and a wife, and I was the sole provider of the family. And now we found ourselves on the losing end of life due to no fault of our own. This created a hardship, a family hardship. We had to survive. We fell back on credit cards. Still, I don't even know what's going on. I'm still taking the pills, just trying to figure out what has hit us, what has hit me. So we accumulate debt, but my wife is managing this all. We don't have that check coming in anymore from the work, being the provider. So the plan was, well, we're going to pay it off when the settlement comes in. At the 1-year mark, the VA denies my claim after they stated to me that they were going to settle my claim. Why did they deny the claim? There was a law written in 1946 that states that if an independent contractor that is working within the halls and the walls of the VA is found responsible for causing bodily harm or injuries due to neglect and malpractice, that they are not responsible for that incident because they are not a VA employee. So they denied the claim based on a technicality and an employment status. The letter went on to say, you need to sue the clinician in state court. They wrote the letter 3 days after my California state statute of limitations had expired. So now I've had my right to due process in federal court stripped away from me. I had my right to due process in state court stripped away with me, and I was left holding the bag. No source of income. My job, my livelihood, taken away from me because of medical malpractice. And let me tell you something, guys. Medical malpractice is one of the leading causes of death in the United States of America. I don't think that doctors do it on purpose. Doctors are busy. Clinicians, nurses, they work hard. There's 350 million of us, so some people are going to fall through the cracks. And it doesn't just happen in the VA, it happens everywhere. We are human beings, and human beings make mistakes. So mistakes will happen. However, in my case, the mistake happened, and it took my physical health and my emotional and mental health away from me for a long period of time, and still suffered those complications. But then they hit me with the legal malpractice, enough to literally put the kill shot into me and my family after already going through so much. No justice, no recourse, no accountability, no due process. Okay. So what do? I contact my congressman, and I show him everything. And he became immediately engaged and wanted to help. However, shortly thereafter, him getting involved in my case, he was indicted on federal charges. And Congress lost all confidence in him, and he was forced out of Congress, leaving me the biggest case in the United States of America in the Department of Veteran Affairs without a sitting member of Congress. I did not have any representation. I didn't have a voice. No attorney would take my case because the law from 1946 was essentially bulletproof. There is no way around it. Sit down, Brian. Take it. You're done. You're going to lose everything. We were thrown to the wolves, literally, folks. A good family. An honorable family. Family that pays taxes and contributes to society. Leaders, coaches, father. All that stuff. And this is how my family and I were treated. Folks, I was done. Done. 99% done. I had nothing left to give. Nothing left to offer. Until one day I stood up and I said, I'm going to get 1% better every single day. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I put it all into God's hands. And I said, guide me. Lead me. Show me. Teach me. Give me the strength. Give me the courage to say, you are going to stand up in the face of adversity. And if you don't have a voice, you are going to create your own. So I became my own voice. I set out to do the job of a congressman. I said, if I'm not going to have one, I'm going to become one. I am going to do the job of Congress. I am going to do the job that Congress has neglected to do in this specific law for 74 years. Why did it take a guy like me to get absolutely railroaded and broken and down to his final 1% of reserve energy to stand up and fight for the good of the country? To stand up and fight for 20.2 million American veterans that are at risk of this very law ruining their life. So I drafted my own bill. I drafted my own legislation, and I hand-delivered it to Washington, D.C., to the very steps of the Capitol building where laws are made. And I walked the halls, and I went door to door urging lawmakers to change an outdated law that has destroyed the lives of veterans and their families for generations. And within 30 days of me sitting down with several members of Congress, this specific trip was 40, I was able to have a bill that I drafted and authored by creating my own legislative online team, by doing my own research, and drafting my own solutions and putting a pencil to paper to say, I am going to make a difference. I am going to change a law that has been criminal and fraudulent toward veterans for far too long. For far too long. So I had a congressman. I wasn't a congressman on paper. I was just an advocate. But I essentially had to do the job of Congress to have my voice heard. And it was effective. I got a bill drafted. Then I became a national news story. Who is this guy? And why is this happening in our country? Remember, I was 99% done. I didn't have anything left to give. I was a strong man before this happened. That's why this law's never been changed. If it could take me out, it could take anybody out. So, I got to work. This is the 116th Congress right here. This would be when my second bill was introduced in Congress. My third bill introduced in Congress. I became the voice for the veteran community when it comes to transparency and accountability at the highest levels of the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I followed through with the promise that I made to myself that I would change this law. It became my obsession. Every second, every minute, every hour of every single day for 3 straight years, this was what was on my mind. I ended up having great success with the bills that were introduced and the work that I was doing in Congress. And on February the 25th, I got a letter that states, hey, we're moving your bill. Everything's starting to look really good. We are inviting you to testify in front of Congress. And that's where I'm going to stop. Because the story's just getting out. It's just getting started. And as you can see right here, February of 2020, we all know what happened in March of 2020. That's when COVID hit. And that's when all of my traction and all of my momentum that I had built up over the years through 2 Congresses and 3 bills being introduced came to a screeching halt. And I had another decision to make. Am I going to continue? Am I going to continue, or am I going to stop? Am I going to quit? I had a lot of really good reasons to quit. And it would have been okay to quit because you don't have a congressman, you got completely railroaded by the state, by the feds, and now you have these bills, and now COVID, and now, okay, you did your best. But I didn't stop. I stayed in the fight. And when we get back from lunch, we'll do part 2. That was the next month, so my hearing was canceled. Another out. I faced another brick wall. Another brick wall. I had another opportunity to quit. I had another opportunity to cut, run, and give up. I had great reasons to quit. Great reasons to quit. So now that we had COVID, my hearing was canceled, and then I couldn't really stay relevant in the media anymore because they were helping driving my story for several years, but now there was a news story. And as you well know, in the United States of America, people are addicted to news. Every 5 minutes, breaking news, your phone goes off. Oh God, what's going on? That's what we have been conditioned to do. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. If you don't have the news, you don't know what's going on. You got to remain relevant, right? It's as if that if it doesn't hit the media, if it doesn't hit the news wire, nobody's going to know about it. It's just going to get covered up. Then this happened. Now the media was not engaged in my story anymore because of all the problems we had going on in our country at the same time. We had COVID, we had civil, social issues going on in this country. And how was I going to get this job done? Because, guys, Congress works in 2-year cycles. That's it, 2 years. And the wheels of justice move very slow within the legislative process. And staying engaged in front of the media and keeping the attention of Congress is very difficult to do when you have so much going on in the country. So I said, well, I'm probably done now for sure. But I stayed in the fight. I stayed in front of them. I made myself relevant. I had to do it in a way that they would understand the importance of what I was doing. There are still 20.2 million American veterans at risk. And I was going to make that known, that we needed to make this change to protect perhaps our most vulnerable population in this country. So 6 months later, finally, we were able to have the hearing. And it passed out of the committee. The way it works is you have the House, the Congress House, and then you have all these branches of subcommittees, all these little branches of government. And so it passed out one of those small branches of government, and then it would go into the House, and then it would pass the House. But we're running out of time. We're running out of time because if the bill doesn't pass within that 2-year cycle, you need to start the process over in the next Congress, after the next election cycle. So, now that we had passed the House, I had to go to the Senate, and I worked the Senate hard, and I got a Republican and a Democrat to come together. Folks, we were doing this, I was doing this in the most divided Congress in the history of our country. No bills were being passed. Democrats don't want to sit down with Republicans. Republicans don't want to sit down with Democrats. No compromise. Folks, if we want to do anything in this country, we need to have compromise. We need to sit down at the same table and hear one another out. I was the bridge between the Democrats and the Republicans coming together for the good of the country. 20 million American veterans. I shouldn't have to beg them to do their job. But I did. Because I was tired. And I didn't want to continue because it was so exhausting. It was exhausting. But I got these two guys to come together like I did in the House. Even though they didn't like each other, I at least brought them to the same table and said, let's do this, because we're running out of time. If we don't get it done now, we probably never will. So I had my team, my bipartisan team, and this never should have been partisan at all to begin with. Nonpartisan politics here, because we're protecting veterans. Veterans represent everybody in this country. All walks of life. Every walk of life represents the United States military. So when I went in there, I didn't have a political affiliation. I went in there fighting on behalf of every veteran in this country, and not anything that had a political agenda by it, or an R or a D by it. Because that is what is destroying this country right now, is you have, say, 500, 600 people that are elected in this country in D.C., between the Senate and the House, and all the way clear up to the president, controlling the minds of 350 million people in this country. And we are the people. And you guys can make a difference if people are willing to stand up and fight in an honorable way and do what's right. Through the hard work and the tenacious efforts, the perseverance, the resilience of not giving up, I was able to get that bill that I had worked so hard on and drafted myself without a member of Congress passed and signed into law that would end this legal loophole and would essentially protect the rights of every veteran in this country after they have fallen victim to VA medical malpractice and gross negligence. When I started this mission, I promised myself that I would work honorably. I would make myself hard to hate. 11,000 hours of advocacy, 5,000 telephone calls and emails. Obsessed. An obsession that I worked hard on every single day until it was done. And like I said, I promised myself one thing. I was going to turn a negative into a positive. But it wasn't easy. You guys saw what I looked like 4.5 years ago. Face puffy, red, I got eyes just, I was done. But see, that's what getting 1% better looks like. You guys can't ever be afraid to begin. You can't ever be afraid to begin. And that goes with anything in life. You can be a man that is on top of the world one moment, and then be down here in the next. And when that moment comes, you got to be able to stand up and fight and look that adversity in the eye and battle back in little bits and pieces at a time. So, mission accomplished. We got it done. And that's my family, unscathed, unscratched, not broken, resilient, cohesive. We stayed together throughout this fight. They fought alongside their dad. They fought alongside their dad. Their dad has always fought for them. But when I went down, they stepped up. And that's what family's all about. So, that's my story. Anybody have any questions?